Hello and welcome to Capital Markets Live. I'm Sandy Picard, Program Analyst in the Office of Capital Markets here at Ginnie Mae. Today we are presenting a conversation with Sam Valverde, Principal EVP, and Richard Perrelli, Product Manager in the Office of Capital Markets, on our Ginnie Mae Social Impact and ESG strategy.
Hi, everyone. This is Sam Valverde. I'm the Principal Executive Vice President for Ginnie Mae. I'm joined by my colleague, Richard Perrelli, who's helping spearhead our ESG efforts. We're very happy to talk today about Ginnie Mae's social impact and how we're making that impact clear to investors through our ESG metrics. For those of you who are more familiar with Ginnie Mae, we were created by Congress in 1968 to serve as a liquidity vehicle for America's borrowers and renters, right? The point of our existence by statute is to support the low-cost credit for those communities and their housing needs. We do that via our guarantee and the MBS that we backstop with that guarantee. And so really our mission is to serve as a force multiplier for our insuring agency partners, right? And working together, we help deliver housing outcomes at prices that would not be possible in the private sector alone. That really is the story of our impact. That's the story of our impact from our inception in 1968 and from our first bond offering in 1970. So, in many important ways, we have been at the forefront of social impact investing, from inception. That's really core to who Ginnie Mae is. It's in our charter. It's what we were designed to do, and we do it well. The real opportunity that we see in the ESG investment growing interest is to help others discern that impact and understand the people we serve better, so that we can help ensure that that we can arm ESG investors with the tools they need to deploy their strategies. And we believe that if we do that well, we can really deliver important gains for borrowers in that space. And on some level, our program really is a proof of concept for the idea that financial markets can deliver positive and lasting change when properly harnessed, right? And that's something we've been doing since 1970. So the ESG investing community really is an important new area for us to explore, and meeting investor needs through additional data is really critical to making sure that channel is robust and they can deliver additional gains for borrowers. So that's a really important priority for us. It's not new, but the ESG lens allows us to sort of take it or tackle it in a new way, which is really, really incredibly important to us, and we hope will drive benefits for borrowers. With that said, we have been working on ESG issues since before I got here last year. So maybe Richard, you can talk a little bit about how we started this journey.
Thank you for that, Sam. In the Office of Capital Markets, I'm the product manager for the multi-class securities. And so I'm in touch with the street, and I attend various conferences. And I started to see ESG getting more and more defined and starting to coalescing around securitization and becoming more salient to our investors. So in January 2021, I started a dialogue with the street on what would be a suitable or good ESG concept for Ginnie Mae. At the time, talking with some of the primary dealers, CRA was one thing that came on their mind. The agencies were doing CRA bonds, Fannie and Freddie. So they think about community reinvestment and social. And they emphasized the need that it would be good to get bank support of our ESG. So anything to do, any interaction between those two areas and CRA would be beneficial. LMI, was in the previous, CRA regulation, but beyond bank compliance without disclosure, it did not present itself as a value proposition to an MBS investor.
That's a great point, right? And so I think one of the things that's really fascinating with this space is sort of how much it is still iterating and developing, right? So, even in the CRA context, you sort of see this growing awareness of the impact opportunity in residential MBS, and you see it sort of developing in a more finely grained way. That's really interesting and compelling on its own. It'd be really interesting to see how regulators finalize the rule, right? Because it could really be a potential additional force multiplier for utilizing MBS to drive sort of positive social change for residential outcomes.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, that's I thought to help this change and this recognition. I kind of leveraged on my experience with in the trading markets with structured credit prior to Ginnie, and there was agency specified low loan balance paper was always a perennial product, always very good demand because of the convexity properties of that. And I posited that LMI was a precursor to low loan balance paper. And if I could disclose LMI and Ginnie Mae securities, one, there could be a potential for CRA compliance. Also, this would become a social serving the underserved metric for ESG investors, and it would present a relative value proposition to the low balance agency specified pools for MBS portfolio managers. So the combination of demand from these three interests potentially would drive up bond pricing for this collateral, allowing the lenders to offer lower rates and closing incentives for these low to moderate income underserved borrowers.
That's a very thoughtful way to think about our approach and define sort of our focus on LMI. But can you talk a little bit more about sort of the steps we've taken on the LMI journey? Because what we just did is not the first movement in this space.
Well, that's right, Sam. As I saw the market started to coalesce, and I wanted to show Ginnie Mae maintains its leadership position in the social space for ESG. For expediency, I reached out with my disclosure team here in capital markets to HUD's Policy Division and Research, or PDR, because they maintained an LMI majority census tract. Okay. And this was used for a qualification for any HUD block grant program. And these census tracts basically, that more than 50% of the inhabitants have to be low to moderate income, which is defined as less than 80% of the area median income. Okay, I thought this would give the metric some social gravitas as an ESG metric. So we announced LMI Geo, the disclosure, in March 2021. And we received some lauds from the street for leadership in the space. And a few months later, by examining bonds with the LMI Geo Disclosure, the street vetted the low balance relative value hypothesis we started out.
That's great. One of the things I love about that anecdote and that process is that it really shows how Ginnie Mae works with the rest of HUD to sort of deliver, important near-term advances, right? So that's a really great story, right, about internal coordination, getting the geo out the door. The one thing about that tool, though, is that it is it's really helpful, but it also, it doesn't give you borrower income data or verification, right? So you don't exactly know who you're helping. So it's a good blunt metric. But if you really want to target the people we serve at the income levels that we serve largely alone, you really need to go that extra step. And so maybe we talk a little bit about what that next step was.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Sam. Actually, I reached out to some banks with LMI Geo to see how they would use it in disclosure or potential when they deal with, at the time, before modernization, their CRA regulators. Because at the time, there was a rule for a simplified investment that LMI MBS could get community development credit. This was before modernization, which is now final. And I also reached out to the OCC at the time to bounce the same idea. How do you like my LMI Geo Disclosure? So Ginnie can have a competitive offering in that space besides the agencies. And they informed me that, borrower income was really more important, as you said, than a geography area. So we went back to the drawing board, and we had to work on an LMI income disclosure. And we decided we'd use FIFIC tables because FIFIC updates their database annually. And also, we had to reach out to all of our agency guarantee loan partners, FHA, VA, rural development, because at the time, we did not receive from them income at origination.
So that's another really great story, right, about intergovernmental cooperation, right? So we know at a high level, right, as a matter of policy, who we're serving through third-party data providers and our own data. But in order to actually produce the disclosure that it seemed like investors need in a way that was privacy protective, we would need to have the underlying data from our insuring agency partners, really. So what we've done, which we think is really important and impactful, would have not been possible but for the support and participation of FHA and VA. Because without them, we understand the impact and who we serve at a high level, at a level of policy, because we have that data available for other means. But if we really want to show the market who we are serving and have them rely on that information, we need to have that directly from the insuring agency partners. And your work, the work across many offices, sort of developing those relationships and finalizing those MOUs with FHA and VA, which have covered most of our issuance, really critically important, right? Like that's the kind of work you want across government. That's the kind of work that taxpayers should expect. And it's really a great story here of cooperation delivering an additional benefit to the market at no additional cost, right? So I just want to highlight that as an important achievement in its own right, because that requires a lot of commitment and care and feeding for those relationships to deliver those kinds of results. And we will continue that with our remaining insuring partners who are working through similar MOUs, as we noted before. So all of that is really, really critically important, and having that strong partnership is incredibly important, both for this and for other efforts. Just want to underscore that.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, Sam, with that point. And in fact, I made it my imperative to convey to each of these agencies that their participation in the process would ultimately add more LMI content and disclosure to each of our bonds, which would make the bond, again, more desirable and would help their borrowers, obtain lower rates. So that's why it was important that we get as many people as possible in this.
That's such a critical point, right? So it's not just each of us, right? We, FHA, VA, we're all serving constituencies that we care about, and this effort is just another way in which we can heighten our force multiplier effect, right? So it will hopefully lead to discernible benefits to VA borrowers in the future, and discernible benefits to FHA borrowers in the future, and to the rest of our insuring agency partners. So really it's a great example, right, of government cooperation helping to drive markets to deliver better outcomes for people. And it really is critical to remind everyone of that. And again, appreciate the efforts of our insuring agency partners for helping us get to this point. To change gears a little bit, no ESG conversation in Ginnie Mae will be complete without discussing our E program or Green program. So maybe we can talk a little bit, Richard, about sort of how that started and how it's going.
Oh, thanks for that question, Sam. Yes, for the E for environmental, or we call green, we had something pretty much already going on over at FHA, but we just didn't have a disclosure for it. We began talks with FHA, the disclosure team and I, September of 2021, because FHA's multifamily had a green mortgage insurance discount program for loans that were certified by a third party, such as Leeds. Okay. And they've been doing this since 2016. So we worked with them to put together a data file so that we can disclose that in our multifamily program. And along the way, we also picked up from them for the multifamily program, if it's green, but whether it's affordable, market, or broadly affordable as well. So we picked up a social metric in addition to the green for multifamily.
That's great. It's really important to underscore that our green program is also not purely a green program, but also part of our broader social impact work. It's really, really important. Richard, this has been a great conversation. I always love talking to you about these issues. We, have a lot of shared perspectives about it, and it really was a wonderful bit of synergy, right? As Elena and I came on to see that this work was important to the staff at Ginnie Mae already, and that we all saw the important implications for getting into this space more readily because of the fact that our charter basically asks us to do that, right? Like it asks us to think about how we can draw on the financial markets to drive change. And that's something that Ginnie Mae has been known for doing, since we were born. But this ESG lens is really critical. And on some level, I think of it as the private market sort of coming around to the same view that has been animating Ginnie Mae staff for decades, which is that we can drive change using investors' interests in a really positive and lasting way. We just need to do it with some care and do it consistently. And so, that's really the theme for our ESG program, right? That we will continue, making clearer to the world the impact that we have as a means of, deepening that impact even more over time. That's really critical for us. And I look forward to having more of these conversations with you and to deliver more of these kinds of advances. So everyone should stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank you for some very thoughtful insights. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to our future episodes of the Capital Markets Live on our YouTube channel. If you have any comments or questions about today's episode or any other topics, please send us an email at ocmglobalinvestorinquiries@hud.gov. Again, that's ocmglobalinvestorinquiries@hud.gov. Thank you for listening.